Hi there, Shutterbugs. Today I'll be going over a walkthrough of the Sony RX100 Mark VII and the features, the buttons, the menu, so you guys can feel a little bit more at ease using the RX100 camera. Let's get started. The Sony RX100 Mark VII is a point-and-shoot camera with a 1-inch 20-megapixel sensor, has an 8.3 times zoom that's an equivalent to a 24 to 200 millimeter lens, has in-body stabilization up to 4 stops, has an aperture that starts at 2.8, and has a 90 frames per second continuous drive. The RX100 Mark VII has a tilting touch LCD screen, shoots 4K video up to 30 frames, has a microphone port, and built-in Wi-Fi to use with the Imaging Edge mobile app. Today we will go over the buttons, doors, and menus of this camera and its features. So today we are talking about the Sony RX100. The first models of the RX100, you were limited to a 24 to 70, and now on this camera I believe it's a 24 to 200. So it gives you a pretty good range all in a small package, and overall is going to be the best point and shoots that you can get. And that goes for general picture taking. The quality overall is extremely impressive. So definitely keep that in mind when looking at this camera, but it's definitely not going to be for, say, your grandmother who just wants pictures of flowers in her garden. This is for someone that is gonna be really getting into photography, but maybe wants something small to put in their pocket, something better than their phone, or maybe they really want to get into vlogging and they want to have that option. As this does have a microphone port, it does make it a good option. So as you can see with the front of the camera, we do have a control ring that is a part of the lens here. Now this can be programmed to do different things. Right off the bat, if we're looking at it right out of the box, it looks like it does adjust either shutter speed or aperture, depending on the setting that you have it on. I'm sure you could use this to fine-tune a zoom. Naturally, this would turn into manual focus if you decided to use your manual focus option, that type of thing. Going to the side of the camera here, you can see we have our doors available. Top door is going to be our microphone port. Now this is pretty unique when it comes to the RX100 series. It only came on this one, I believe. I don't even think it came on the 6. I'll have to double check that. But that made things definitely different in this one for those that wanted to use it for vlogging. The second one here is where we have our charging cable. This is going to be also where you would use your micro USB cord that comes with the camera. You would use this to transfer pictures as well as upgrading firmware if that needed to be done. And the last one here is going to be our HDMI door. Now of course you would connect this to an external screen. You could connect this to, say, your living room television and do a slideshow of your most recent trip or event right from the camera if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to show it to a larger group. If we go to the other side of the camera here, you can see that this camera does have NFC available, and this is where you would find the switch for the viewfinder. Now when you hit this switch, it's going to automatically pop up the viewfinder here. Now on the older models you used to have to pull this part out, but instead it automatically pops out for you. When you're bringing your eye up to it, it will turn that screen off. When you take your face away, it will turn that screen on. And if you want to put this away, then you're just going to put this in and put this down. One more thing though, before I put it away, is you may notice a little switch on top here. This is going to be your diopter. This is going to adjust the viewfinder to your eyes in case, say, you wear glasses and I don't. Now the only thing is that when you do put the viewfinder away, it does turn off the camera. So it is important that if you do not wish for it to do that, you do have to change that in the menu itself. If we go to the top of the camera here and discuss our buttons and doors and switches, we do have this compartment here, which is actually our pop-up flash, and to use that, you're actually just going to hit this switch here, which is going to make the flash pop up for you, and when you don't want to use it, you just put it down right back into its little hole there. You may notice these little ports here. These are going to be the built-in microphone, which kind of takes everything from a 360 view. Definitely keep that in mind if you're doing video without an attached mic. That's going to pick up whatever's going behind the camera, in front of the camera, and also possibly behind the person as well. It may not be so direct. Here we have our zoom lever, so you do W for wide angle, and then you do the T for telephoto, so it will extend that lens out. The middle here is going to be your shutter button, so you push it halfway down to focus, and you push all the way down to take the picture. And then we have our mode dial here as well. And before we get into that, this of course is going to be our on and off button here. Now you notice right now it has a green light inside. When you first plug the camera in with the battery, because this does internally charge, you may notice that this light may turn orange. So it's going to be orange until it is fully charged at that point. Something to keep in mind. Here you can see that we're going to go ahead and start on automatic. Well, that's where a lot of people start out. Automatic is letting the camera take full control over all your pictures. From the lighting to the focusing, all of it. It's saying, I know what's best, let me take care of it. Now, if you have taken pictures for quite a while, you will have gotten to a point somewhere in your life of taking pictures, whether with a cell phone or a camera, of, oh, no, I didn't want it to come out that way. I wanted it to come out this way. In those cases, that's when you're going to move into your manual modes, P, A, S, and M. So if we start in the P mode, this is going to be your program auto. This is going to be your first step off of auto, where the camera is going to basically be assisting you while you're learning, say, your shutter speed, your aperture, your focusing modes, your focusing areas, those things that you can kind of dial in and customize, but the camera is going to change everything else so everything works like it would in auto, where it's going to make sure that your exposure comes out okay. Versus your A mode, this is your aperture mode. This is where you can pick the opening in the lens, how much light you let in, if you want to try and achieve that blurry background, sharp foreground, although it is difficult with these point and shoots. Then you would use your A mode, and the camera would choose the speed that it needs to take it at. Versus S for speed, shutter speed that is, it's going to allow you to choose the speed that you're taking the picture. So if you're trying to freeze motion or show motion, and then the camera will determine what the aperture is. M, of course, being full manual, is going to allow you to choose everything and anything. So the camera is not assisting you anymore. It's just doing what it's told. At that point, you want to make sure that you understand all of the terms that I just told you, anything from shutter speed, aperture, ISO, to your focusing modes and what they do, before you really jump into manual. MR is going to be memory recall, where you can actually recall certain settings that you had set previously. Film strip is actually going to be your movie mode. Now, you can do a video on this camera just by pushing the red button here on any of these other modes, auto, P, A, S, M. The only thing about the movie mode is the menu is easily accessible for specifically the movie settings. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you are taking pictures more than you are video, but want to take the occasional video, you don't have to switch to this mode to do video. All you have to do is hit this red button once to start recording, hit it again to stop recording. Very simple. HFR is going to be high frame rate. That's going to ensure that you get a high frame rate video so you can slow it down, speed it up, do what you wish. The little long rectangle symbol here, that's going to be your panoramic mode, where you start at the left, move in a nice even motion from left to right, following across the landscape that you would like to capture. Then SCN, which are our scene modes, which we'll go ahead and we will take a look at those. So to change your scene mode, you just hit your function button, which we're going to go over here in a moment. You go over to the corner here to our scene selection, where you can then choose portrait, sports, macro, landscape, sunset, night scene, all sorts of different options here, where it's essentially going to be our automatic mode, but it's going to allow you to tell the camera, okay, you choose all the settings, but just so you know, I'm working in this specific situation. And for the rest of the video, we're actually going to stay on the P mode, because this is going to allow me to show you everything on the menu versus a limited menu, which is what you get on auto. So if you're going through the menu with me, make sure that you're in the P mode or your manual modes, not your automatic or scene modes. Almost forgot the bottom of the camera here. As you can see, it has its regular screw mount, so you can screw it on, say, a miniature tripod, a regular tripod. And then we have our door here, which houses our memory card and our battery. The back of the screen is touchscreen, of course, as well as it being a flip-up screen and tilt, so you can do selfies, you can view high and low very easily. We've gone over the movie button, so we know what that is. We're going to go over the menu button last. The function button is actually going to be your quick menu button. This is probably my favorite button on the camera. This allows you access to some of your more commonly changed settings without having to go into the actual menu. So the first square here is actually going to be your drive mode. If we click that, with the center button, it's going to give us our options. So the single square, when you click and hold the shutter button, is going to take one picture. On the high continuous shooting mode, that's going to be your 90 frames per second. And then you have other burst modes as well as timers and bracketing options. The next one here is going to be your focus mode, how the camera focuses. So here you have AFS, which is going to be single shot autofocus. This is going to allow the camera to focus and lock onto a subject. This is typically something that's still, like a tree or a bowl of fruit, you know, something that's not going anywhere, versus something that's moving. You'd want to set it to AFC, autofocus continuous. So it's continually looking for movement as you're taking pictures. For example, Roxy, or if there were, you know, birds in the backyard or something like that, it's going to look for that movement and focus accordingly. And then of course you have AFA, which is going to allow the camera to automatically determine if the subject is still or moving. But of course there's room for error because the camera is not always right. Then you have manual focus, where you can actually use that front ring to manually focus in. Next on the list, you can see that that's actually going to be the focus area. So this is where the camera's focusing. So you have wide, where it's pretty much the whole screen, a general zone, the center, a specific point, and so anywhere from wide to extreme specifics. The next one here is your exposure compensation, meaning that if you go positive numbers, you're actually going to make your scene brighter, versus negative numbers, you make your scene darker. Now this is going to help you correct exposure issues when it comes to, say, snow, or maybe some black rocks on the beach, where you want to get like a true white versus a true black in your tones. It doesn't lighten it or darken it automatically due to exposure and metering. So you can correct that without changing any major settings. Then you have your ISO, your sensitivity to light. Then we have our metering mode, where you want it to take that light from. We have your flash mode, that nice pop-up flash there. Your flash compensation. You have your white balance, which is the temperature of your picture, warmer or cooler. Auto white balance usually does the trick. Creative style, so this will give you different filters, if you would. So more vivid color, neutral colors, black and white, all of those different options there. And then you have like your quality of picture, so raw and JPEG, or just JPEG if you wish. Then of course we have our shortcuts on our adjustment dial here. So if you hit up, it's actually going to change the display that we're seeing on the back of the screen, depending on what you want to see. Personally, I like this one here, even though it's busy, because it gives me the battery level, gives me how many pictures I have left, shows me my general settings. And then if you hit to the left, that's actually another shortcut for your drive mode, as well as hitting the right. This is going to be your flash modes. And if you hit down, that's going to be your exposure compensation. So because you already have these as shortcuts, you could always change your options in your quick menu if you want those options to be something else. Then here we have our play button. This is going to allow us to view our pictures. If you click to the right or the left, you'll be able to go forward or backward through your images. If you don't like a certain image, like for example, I know there's one in here that just didn't turn out, Like this one I accidentally took of the mat. So if I wanted to delete this one, you just hit the trash can button and you delete. Oh, and if you need to get out of a menu or your playback menu at all you have to do is hit your shutter button halfway down and it'll get you right back into shooting mode. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and go over the menu here. So we're going to start at the first page, first tab. That's going to be our picture taking tab, is camera tab number 1. Now you will find that there are a lot of repetition when it comes to like the shortcuts we went over and your quick menu to what's available in your menu. So there's very little that you should have to go into your actual menu for, so keep that in mind. So file format, we've already gone over that. That was in our quick menu. Your JPEG quality you always want on fine, as well as your JPEG image size you always want on large. Your aspect ratio, 3:2 is definitely going to be the most common. You have your panoramic size and direction. Long exposure noise reduction. I personally like to be able to control that in Lightroom, and I like to be able to take my pictures a little bit faster, so I have this turned off. You have high ISO noise reduction. Color space you really just want to keep on sRGB. Here we have like auto mode, scene selection. Because I'm in the P mode, it does have those grayed out. You have your drive mode. Again, that's either by pushing left on your dial or that's going to be accessible in your quick menu. You have single burst self timer. Again, that's also accessible through the drive menu, as well as your bracketing settings. We have the memory recall options, what's on your dial there. You have your focus mode, focus area, again, same as your quick menu. You have switch vertical, horizontal autofocus area. Sure, why not? Autofocus illuminator. That is going to be, if we look here, there's this little light bulb here. That is going to shine out a little LED whenever it needs help focusing. Whether it's because there's a lack of information, because it's too dark, whatever it is, it'll shine out that little LED to assist itself. You have face and eye autofocus settings. You can actually choose animal or human eye focus, which is pretty great. It did pick up Roxy's eye, not as much I noticed as say a full frame Sony camera, which I did think was interesting, but it still did pick up her eye, so it did help a little bit. The pre-autofocus, autofocus area registration, all of these I really wouldn't bother with. Area auto clear. You have display continuous autofocus area if you want to continually display it rather than just hitting the shutter button down. You have your phase detection area. You have exposure compensation, ISO settings, metering modes, again, all found in your quick menu. You have your spot metering point where you want that to be. Center is the most common. Auto exposure lock with the shutter. I would definitely have that on if you want to lock in your light. You have your flash mode, flash compensation, red eye reduction, in case you do use your pop-up flash. Your white balance and white balance modes, of course. You have your creative style, picture effect, which, by the way, the reason this is grayed out is because you can't do it when you're taking raw pictures. But the picture effect, if you wanted to play with that, is naturally different effects. But I think the coolest one on there is where you can pick out a certain color, red, blue, green, or yellow, and the rest of the photo is black and white. So that one's a lot of fun to play with along with some other ones if you're not quite into editing your pictures yet, and at that point you don't need to take pictures in RAW. Then you have your picture profile, soft skin effect, shutter auto white balance lock. You have your focus magnifier, so when you're manually focusing, it'll zoom in a little bit to ensure that you're getting focus. You have focus magnification time. You have your manual focus assist, peaking setting, which is that highlighting. You have it so you can have it to where it registers faces when you do have face recognition on, to be able to recognize certain people that you take pictures of quite a bit. Smile shutter allows you to be able to take a group picture, and if it detects a smile, it will take a picture, which saves you a lot of time racing the clock on the timer, which is really great. You have self-portrait timer if you'd like to have that on, so when the screen is all the way up, it'll do a countdown of 3, 2, 1 for you when you hit the shutter button. You have your different exposure modes. So now you'll see that we're actually on our second tab here. This is going to be more so for movie. So you have like your file format, what your record setting is on, so what the frame rate you need it to be, your high frame rate settings, your quality, the image size if you do decide to take a picture while it's recording. You can change your autofocus drive speed. You have your autofocus tracking sensitivity in case you need to adjust the sensitivity at which it's going to be tracking from, like, say, closer subject to a farther subject. You have your auto slow shutter. You have initial focus magnification, which is just kind of its automatic, which is 1x, but you can change that. Audio recording, to have that on or off. Audio level display, would definitely set that on. The audio record level I would definitely change when it comes to putting in an external microphone. Set it to about 15. When noise reduction, steady shot, which of course is going to be that four-stop of optical stabilization. You have your marker display, marker settings, movie with shutter, if you want to use the shutter button to record rather than the red movie button. And of course that's going to be on your movie mode. You have your shutter type, release without card. I like to have that disabled because I commonly forget my cards, so at least it'll give me a reminder if I don't have one in there. Steady shot. You have zoom speed, zoom function on the ring. You have your display button, your finder and your monitor settings, zebra settings if you want your grid line to help you find balance and composition, exposure setting guide, live view display, shooting start display, shooting timing display, auto review if you want to see the picture after you've taken it. You have your custom operations, so your custom keys, if you would like to change those on your picture taking, your movie mode, or your picture viewing mode. You can change all that, as well as your quick menu, your function menu settings. So, I mean, with these new cameras, everything is so very highly customizable. Your My Dial settings, which is this guy here. Your AV TV rotate. Function to touch operation, if you would like that to be on, off, touch to shoot. Movie button is always going to be the record button. Wheel lock. Audio signal, if you would like those audio signals to be on. Now we're on our network tab, which is all about connecting to your phone or your smart device through Wi-Fi, through Bluetooth, to the imaging mobile app in general. I, at the moment, have the airplane mode on, which does save the battery a little bit. So if you're not planning on using the app anytime soon, I would definitely set the airplane mode on to save you a little bit of battery power. Otherwise, you could send to your computer or your smartphone, although if you're trying to send to your computer, I would just connect it with a cord. It's much easier, believe me. Otherwise, if you're trying to connect to your smartphone, I will set the link here for you guys to be able to learn more about the Imaging Edge mobile app. You have your Bluetooth settings, location info, editing the device name, resetting the network settings. Then of course we are on our playback tab, which is for pictures that we've already taken, so you can protect them, rotate them, delete them, rate them, whatever you want to do. You can do a photo capture, enlarge an image, do a slideshow, you can change your view mode, display as a group, and then display rotation as well. And then we have our second to last tab, which is going to be the toolbox here. It's our general settings. You have your monitor brightness, your viewfinder brightness, finder color temperature, gamma display. A lot of these you're really not going to change, which is why I'm not going into them a lot of detail and I'm just kind of going through them. However, if you do have questions about something specific that I'm just skipping over because the majority of people buying this camera are not going to use these settings, please let me know. I'd be happy to explain it further. I just really want to target how to get you guys started, what's important in the menu to really put your focus on. These other things here, like the gamma and the color temperature, I mean, just leave it. You're really not going to change those. unless it's a very special circumstance. And you have your mode dial guide if you would like that on or off, delete confirmation. It's all just very customizable. So you have your display quality, your auto monitor off, your power save, you have auto power off temperature, your touch operation if you would like that on or off. You have your HDMI settings, you have your USB connection, your USB power supply, PC remote settings if you would like to use the remote option that Sony has to offer, the language, the time and date, area setting, copyright info. Format is always something I like to touch on a little bit in all of my walkthrough videos. Now, formatting your card, it is going to permanently erase all pictures on there, or at least you should act like it does. In most cases, it does. The reason you would want to do that is because it resets the card to how you purchased it. It's like it's new. It's nice and fresh and ready to use again. So you always want to make sure you back up your pictures to your computer before you decide to format your card. And I would format your card every so often. Anytime you back up the pictures to the computer and go, okay, I'm ready to start on a new event or a new trip or new walk to the park, format the card in the camera and start over. Otherwise, if you're the type of person to just buy a new card for each circumstance, don't worry about it. Just try and avoid this and hitting it on accident. You have your file and folder settings, your record file settings, recovering image, displaying media info, and then of course your firmware version to know if you need a firmware update, which you can always find on the Sony website. And then of course you have your setting reset. So say you're playing with this camera, and as you can see there is a lot going on in the menu. You change something because you go, I wonder what this is, and now your camera's doing something funny. I would go into the toolbox, go to page 7 out of 7, and go to setting reset. It's going to reset your settings back to how you took it out of the box, and if that doesn't fix the problem, then I would take it to your local camera store. But usually this will fix the problem, especially when you're in a bind and you have no one that you can ask. And then last but not least, the last tab here is the My Menu tab. This tab is specifically so you can go through all of these tabs here, pick what you absolutely need, and put it in this tab. So like I said, the majority of stuff in all those tabs, you're never going to use. It's very, very rare. So say format and resetting your settings, you know you're going to use those, and maybe you don't want them on your quick menu or can't have them on your quick menu. You can add them to your My Menu tab, so instead of having to dig through all these tabs to find what you need, you always go to your My Menu settings and they're there waiting for you. Other than that, that pretty much sums up the Canon RX100 Mark VII. Like I said, if I didn't go over everything in enough detail for you, please ask me questions below. Always happy to answer questions, to cater to you guys. It's the whole reason I'm doing this and putting my time in on it right now. Currently, at the moment, I'm dedicating my time, which at the time of recording, it is past 2 a.m. Because at the moment there's other stuff going on during my day, so I gotta find time to do this for you guys. But I am, like I said, happy to answer any questions that I didn't go over here. If I missed anything, I apologize. Happy to clarify if I need to. If there are other cameras you want to see on the channel of me going through them in more detail, maybe you want to see certain settings being an example of, maybe a video on bracketing. I don't know, I haven't considered that one yet. But I will add it to my list if you ask for it. And until next time, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye.